Our next guest, Nirupama Subramaniam, is a consultant, facilitator, and a leadership coach with a wealth of experience built up over 25 years. She is the co-founder at GLOW, an organization committed to the development of inclusive work cultures and empowering women for leadership roles. She's also founder and CEO, Powerful Life Solutions, and a co-founder of My Daughter is Precious. Among her many accomplishments, Nirupama is also a best-selling author of her 3 books, Keep the Change, Intermission, and now Powerful. She has written for Times of India, Hindustan Times, Cosmopolitan, National Geographic, and other publications. A perfect guest for the show, Nirupama has truly dedicated herself to the empowerment of women. Welcome to the show, Nirupama.
Thank you, Shailja. Thank you for having me here.
So can you tell our listeners a little bit about yourself?
Okay, so I've written 3 books. You're asking an author to tell a little bit about herself, so I'm going to see how I can condense that. So I think what I see is myself holding different identities. One of that is my work identity, which is I'm a leadership development coach and a facilitator, and this is the work I've been doing for the last 20 years or so. My purpose and my goal is really to grow and help other people grow and live a very joyous life. And apart from that, I'm also, as I said, an author. I've authored 2 novels, and my 3rd book, Powerful, The Indian Woman's Guide to Unlocking Her Full Potential, is out right now. Apart from that, I also I have a not-for-profit initiative called My Daughter is Precious, which is my family initiative, and I'm one of the co-founders along with my husband and daughter. And in this initiative, we raise funds and we provide mentoring and life skills for young girls from underserved backgrounds to complete their undergraduate education. And apart from all of that, I am a mother to a 20-year-old daughter. I'm a wife. I'm a yoga enthusiast. I'm an avid traveler. And it's pretty much, I think, enough for a short beginning.
That's a book I would want to read. So where did GLOW come from, Nirupama? What inspired the need for that initiative?
So GLOW stands for, of course, Growing Leadership of Women. And in GLOW, which I co-founded along with my business partner, Aparna, our purpose is really to enable a more inclusive, just and equitable world. And we do this through the work of our coaching and leadership development. So what GLOW does is we work in 4 different domains. One is definitely with corporates, where we help them with their diversity and inclusion agenda, whether it's through workshops on unconscious bias or women leadership programs, to enable women to reach leadership positions and for organizations to create the inclusive culture that is required. We do some work with women entrepreneurs as mentors. We offer sessions for them so that they can live their full potential. We do work with underserved communities, so which is where GLOW comes in to provide the mentoring and life skill support for My Daughter is Precious. So we work with these young girls and we find mentors for them who will support them. And then, of course, what we love to do is to offer very interesting learning experiences for any woman who wants to sign up and join them. So we do retreats, we do courses, we offer personal and professional growth resources for women. So GLOW does all of that. And one of the reasons we wanted to start GLOW, and there are 2 reasons. I think the first is the professional reason. As I was doing this work of leadership development and working with organizations, I saw that there were very, very few women when it came to the senior level programs and workshops that I was doing. And in a group, there would often be 20 men, 1 woman, or very, very low percentages, especially at the senior levels. So I became curious to understand what happens. What happens, in fact, to all the smart girls who graduate with such dreams from school and from college, and they enter the workforce, and somewhere there is a leaky bucket because we don't see that many women at senior level positions. So that was one of the reasons we started GLOW, is to fill this particular gap, because I strongly believe it's very important to have balanced leadership, whether it's in politics or whether it's organizations. So that's one reason. And the second is also came from my own experiences as a professional woman, as a working mother, as a wife, as somebody in contemporary India who plays all of the old traditional roles, but also wants to have a life outside of the house. is the need for safe spaces where women can come together, share, talk, and discuss. So I really felt the need to provide support, for women like myself, as well as support for all the other women who just want a space where they can be themselves, where they can be heard, and they can be completely comfortable and invest in themselves. So that's how Glow came to be.
So Nirupama, tell us, about My Daughter is Precious, right? So that's also in one of our conversation you mentioned about it. So our listeners would love to hear more about that.
Yeah. So My Daughter is Precious is a passion project for all of us. When I say us, it's me, my daughter, who is very precious, and her name is Kavya, and my husband Rajesh. And it's a very interesting, let's say, origin story, if I may call it that, for My Daughter's Precious. So in 2014, we had moved as a family to Bangladesh, Dhaka. And my daughter, who was a teenager then, was, finding it difficult to settle. We'd uprooted her from her wonderful school and home in Gurgaon to this completely new country. And, she at 13 was having a bit of a tough time. And one day she saw this documentary in school about the fact that many girls, 65 million girls across the world, don't have access to education. And that sparked off a very interesting dinner table conversation in our family. And we said, let's do something about it. So it started off as a photography project where, my husband Rajesh and Kavya both had an interest in photography, would go to these areas, underserved areas, what we call slums in urban cities, speak with the families and see, whether the girls were taken care of, what they felt about the education of girls. And we also wanted to highlight the father-daughter bond. So this was a father-daughter thing that they were doing together. So what we would do is take photographs of fathers with their daughters and immediately give them a Polaroid copy as a memento that your daughter is precious, as precious, maybe more than a son, and you need to invest in her and take care of her. And we were very, very heartened by the fact that most of the families we met, and I would say most, not all, were very supportive of their daughters going to school and getting that education. So it started off as that, and then, we met 50 families, we put a Facebook page, we shared the stories, and we thought, okay, we made a little bit of impact on those families we connected with. But after about 2 years of doing that, during one of our visits, we met this young girl who was talking about how she had to drop out of college because the family did not have money for her education. And this was in Chennai, in a fishing community, and the mother was a housemaid, the father was an out-of-work fisherman. There was a lot of pressure on the family, and there was a lot of pressure on this girl to quit her studies and, bring in the income for the family. And she couldn't pay the college fees. They could not accumulate the 10,000 rupees that was needed. And which is when we realized that we actually were in a position to make a significant difference by funding the higher education. We found most of the girls go to school. At least in urban areas, it's not an issue. It's considered, quite the normal thing for girls to study up to class 10. If not complete school, because government education is heavily subsidized. But when it came to higher education, which is what they needed to get a job which would help them to break out of this cycle of poverty, that's where we saw a big gap. So that's what we do now with My Daughter's Precious. We raise money to provide scholarships for these young girls so that they can complete their education and go on to get a job. And through Glow, we provide a mentor for each girl, because we realized that more than just the financial support, they wanted somebody who could guide and support and help them. Many of them are the first in their family to go to college, and their parents are supportive but unable to give them the kind of guidance we wanted. And I'm really happy to say that this year we would have sent more than 51 girls to college. Our first girl, her name is Gayatri, whom we met in Chennai. She graduated and she got a job in an office, first white collar job. And I remember feeling so excited when she sent me this appointment letter, which she had got. And she sent a photo of herself sitting at a desk in front of a computer, which nobody in her family had ever done before. So I've been in touch with Gayatri till last year. and it was extremely heartening to see that it makes a difference. It makes a tangible difference. So that's what we do now. We have a tie-up with a college. So from, individual, identifying individual girls, now we have institutional partnership. We have a tie-up with a college from the Delhi University. And this is our 4th cohort this year, where we are supporting 15 girls to get complete 2 years of the college. Then we take them in the first year. Each girl has a mentor. And I'm very happy this year we have a second institutional partnership, which is with Holy Family College of Nursing. And we are supporting young student nurses to complete their education. And each girl gets mentored by a senior nurse. So really proud of the fact. I think the pandemic has showed us the importance of healthcare workers, and we've started doing that. And it's my dream really to expand this and reach as many girls as possible. And the mentors have also found it an amazing experience, because they learn as much from these young girls whom they support as much as they give to them in terms of knowledge and guidance. So it's been a very, very heartwarming and fulfilling experience. So we're small in scale, but I think we are making a significant impact.
What an inspiring insight into your life, Nirupama. While we are struggling with finding our true mojos and keeping it ignited, you're not only doing that for yourself, but you're walking the talk and also helping others, reach their goals. How do you manage your professional and personal lives? Because what you're doing is not only for yourself, it's a lot for the society, for people around you, right? How does that balance come from? Our listeners would love to hear you.
So balance is a very interesting word, Shailaja, and I've been also struggling and reflecting on what true balance is. So I think for me, I chose to design my life in a very different way from being in a typical corporate setup. So I work as an independent consultant. I have my own firm. I have Glow. I have another firm where I do leadership development and work with, of course, men and corporates. So I continue to do that. And of course, I write as well. So I design my life so that I find time for what truly gives me energy and keeps me happy, rather than focus on some of the things which I don't enjoy. And I'm very, very fortunate that I'm able to outsource many of the things that I don't want to do, like cooking, right? So I can admit now that I don't cook. I am very lucky. I have a helper who takes care of that. She looks after my house, and I've always had that, whether it's in India or Bangladesh. So I also take on work which is rewarding and meaningful, because I have a financial goal, but I don't have an idea of making lots and lots of money. That's not my dream. So having clarity on values, clarity on priorities, clarity on what I'm good at and love doing, and what I can eliminate from my life, all of these have really helped me to keep the balance. And for me, it's not about time. It's about managing my energy. Because I spent a Sunday, I think last Sunday, doing 3 talks. And they were all things that I wanted to do. In the morning, it was for another NGO. In the afternoons, for a group of coaches. Then I did something else. And I was like, why am I working on a Sunday? But I realized for me that was not work. That I was doing something that I really enjoyed and I wanted to do. And I am lucky that I can take time off during the week and do some of the things that I want. So I just say, I block my calendar and I'm not available for calls and sessions, or I know I have a free day. And then I can do the stuff that I want, which is not work. So for me, it's about managing my whole life. It's about managing my energies. And I think the fact that right now at this stage of my life, right, I was just telling my daughter, I'm not an active parent. My daughter is in college in the US, so she's not physically present. So I was just saying, she's saying, Mom, instead of relaxing, you're doing much more, with your time. You should just be chilling now that I'm not there and I don't need you around. Not that she did in any case. So I think I'm also at the stage of life that I feel I can do a lot more with my time. But it's always been like that. I think work to values, prioritize what you want, delegate. And this is what I tell a lot of women who I coach, that you don't have to take on all the household responsibility on your shoulders and feel that you have to bear the load and there is no option. I know I have a supportive spouse, so we've kind of measured up the chores and said, you'll do this and I'll do that. And as I said, I have help who I fully utilize, and I don't try to be perfect in everything that I do. I try to find joy in everything that I do, not be perfect in everything that I do. And balance is always, it's an ongoing game. You'll never have a day which is perfectly balanced, but you can have a life that has some semblance of balance.
So your priorities are completely set, right? So the need and the want, the balance is there. From what I can see, you definitely carved out the need in your life. But what is about ambition and want is something which you've kind of parked and you have deprioritized maybe. And that's the time you have to give to others, because I see a lot of you is available for others, right? You're doing so much for the upliftment of society, women. And it's not even about women, right? So you've done some workshops for men to get the gender equality.
Many, actually. Yeah. Most,
So, Nirupama, the genesis of Unstoppable Women was a thought which, inspired me at the time of Women's Day, while we're celebrating women empowerment and Women's Day. It was also about the fact that as women, we carry a lot of labels and identities, right? We play a lot of roles in our lives as a mother, daughter, wife. But somewhere women also get lost playing those roles and don't find the me time or the time to connect with the ikigai, like you said, right? So how do you balance, how do you get that mojo to keep your ikigai ignited? Can you give some tips to our listeners?
So I think firstly, everything, any change and transformation has these 3 steps. The first is awareness. I feel that a lot of women don't even take the time to sit back and be in a space of awareness where they can figure out what's going on, who am I, what do I really want to do, right? It's like you're constantly on the treadmill, and at some time you're too scared to get off for that awareness. So once you do that, and that's one reason why we do the workshops that we do. So about a couple of years back, before the pandemic, we did a retreat called Redesign Your Life, which was a space for women to come and exactly take this time for self-awareness. But there were a lot of women who said, no, child's exams are next week and I'm not sure this is the right time. So I find women hesitate to even take that time out. A lot of them do it, but prioritizing yourself to figure out what you want itself is the first step. So be in awareness so that you take the time out. Second, it's really about a choice that you make. So how do you choose what's important? How do you choose what gives you joy and whether you can honor that, or you are actually choosing to be stuck in a particular situation and blaming the world? So make the choice. Thirdly, it is the action, right? What do you actually do? So I know people who become aware and they make a choice and they say, no, this can wait. I will wait. I can wait. I will do it after my children go to college, kind of a thing. And there are other women who don't see that as a constraint and say it's absolutely possible to figure out my balance, and they take actions that are required to do this. They get a support system, they sign up for a course, they educate their children that it's not important for you to have your mother around all the time, and they take those actions that are responsible for their own growth. And there are lots of women I know who are doing that extremely well. So I think it's important for women to, to some extent, to take responsibility for their own growth and prioritize them, rather than saying later, not now. And, I'm speaking to women in their late 40s and 50s who are actually waking up and saying, what's my life? What's the next 25 years going to be about? And coming to terms with the fact that they have a lot of their life and their identities left. So I think it's extremely important for you to be able to be in that space of awareness in the first place, so that you can move through the other stages. And me time is, again, there's me time and there's me time. And I know a lot of women who would go to a spa, who would go shopping quite happily. And I love doing that. There's nothing wrong with that kind of me time at all. Absolutely, you need to indulge yourself. You need to hang out with your girlfriends and drink lots of wine and, have that kind of fun as well. And if you feel your life is complete and you're happy, more power to you. But if doing all of that still leaves you feeling that it's not enough and you need something more, then you make those other choices to take the time for reflection and invest in your own growth and figure out what you really want to do.
So what are the qualities that define a leader? Because you've also worked a lot in that space. And how does a person become one?
So how does a person, it's like you there's a usual thing which we do in workshops, are leaders born or made? And, there's the typical leadership workshop discussion. And having done this work and, done leadership workshops over all these years, I will say that in a way, it's a combination of your inherent qualities, ambition, and then the resources that you get to be on that particular path. So, in fact, in my book, Powerful, which has just released, I speak about these 6 powers that women have, and that I would say, though the lens is feminine, but I think it's extremely important for every leader to have those 6 powers. And these are what we call qualities, or I call them powers or strengths. And we all need to have some degree of each. And what makes a great or good leader is knowing what are my inherent strengths, essence, and qualities. How can that become a block to me to being in my leadership power? And what are the additional qualities and powers that I need to learn and nurture for myself? Right? And I'll give you an example. For example, one of the powers I speak about is the Veera, or the warrior energy, or the power. And these are women who are bold, who are courageous, who take risks, who are not afraid to speak up, relentless, ambitious, goal-oriented. And that's fantastic. And that's, I think, a very, very important quality you need to have to be in any kind of leadership position. But overuse of that will also cause burnout. There'll be lack of empathy. You will be driving yourself to the point of exhaustion. You might not have too many, close, nourishing relationships. That is a pitfall. So then what do? You need to balance it out with some other energy, with some other power. So this is what I call, maybe you need a little bit more of the nurturing caregiver energy, which is what I call the Ma power, and recognizing the fact that this is not the only way for you to succeed, but also incorporating some of the other qualities that you may not have is what will make you, I would say, of course, a successful leader, but also a successful as a human being in any context. And you can be a leader not necessarily in the corporate context. You can be a leader in the field of arts. You can be a leader in the field of academia, or whatever you do. You can have your own definition of what being a leader means, which is really your ability to impact and influence a larger number of people and be a force for good. For me, that's who a leader is. And to do that, I think that it's very simple. Identify your inherent strengths and capabilities so that you don't expend too much energy in trying to be who you're not. Accept who you are. That's what I say. If you are a Veera, that's fine. If you're a Kanya, what I call the good girl energy, or you're a Rishika, the wise woman energy, that is all fine. But to take you to the next level, what more do you need? What have you been avoiding? What is something more that you need to bring in? And if you can do that, that will take you on the path of leadership.
So in your book, Powerful, do you also have ways of a woman identify which power she has more and how to balance with the other powers?
Yes. So I'm glad you asked me that question. Yes, to some extent, the book will give you that answer. But what I've also done, precisely because people would have that question, is I've created a psychometric tool and an assessment tool, which is validated. So I partnered with a psychometrician to create it. And by taking that assessment, which I think would be the first one to use a lens of women in the Indian South Asian context, you will get a score of what your scores are on the different powers, the 6 powers, and also a guideline for what you can do about it. So my goal is also to set up a coaching practice where coaches like me and others who want to support women can use this as a very, very enabling and valuable tool to help women know these are my strong energies. And these are the ones that are latent or not developed. These are potential blocks that come in the way of me living my full potential. And then either work on your own or work with the coach to help you to be the kind of powerful person that you want to be. So for me, it is like,
Yeah, this is fantastic. I mean, the first time I heard, many months ago when we spoke for the first time, I was so happy that, somebody's thinking in that direction. One is to use data insights to identify their various powers within women, and then how to have an actionable plan after that. So even coaching through that, for women, I think that's great. I would really love to hear more about your coaching and the next steps after Powerful. How you take it ahead. I'll be watching you closely.
Thank you. Please do. So it is. I think this is the beginning. The book has just come out. The psychometric assessment tool is ready. We are planning workshops, and I've been doing a lot of sessions over the last 2 months for corporates, for NGOs. I'm going to be doing 2 sessions for women entrepreneurs, just to tell them about. And I believe in my creation. Let's say if I didn't, then there's been no point putting it out. And I believe, and I have benefited greatly by having a language, by having something that speaks to me and my context. And it's my dream and wish that more and more women can access this. And in fact, a couple of men have told me, why don't you do something like this for us as well? So maybe in the future. That is there.
That's really amazing, and just, it just takes one shift in the mind, right, which can really change a person's life. And I see this happening through such workshops, and that's why I'm a true believer in the kind of work which you do, which is also so resonates with our, show Unstoppable Women. Come on, you have it in you, wake up. And, it's not somebody from outside who can give the power to you. It's about the power inside. And you can identify that.
That is so true, because I was speaking to somebody, they said, I don't like this term women's empowerment. It seems like some political agenda, or somebody will come and empower these women with SOPs and different kinds of things, and suddenly the women will feel empowered. So I do believe that systems need to change, and of course we need to work on the patriarchal mindset and many deep systemic issues. But I think that has to happen along with women taking and claiming their inner power. You can't, we have to take responsibility. At the same time, the world around us has to change. And I believe that, and this is what I've seen, that if you start taking responsibility, the world around you has no choice but to change in your favor.
So now I'm very curious, Nirupama. I want to know more about the child Nirupama. What brought this transformation, and that the Nirupama of today we see is transforming, so many lives. What really triggered, and how did this thought come to you that I want to do something for many people, many women out there? It's not only about myself.
So, interestingly, when I was growing up, and I had this interesting chat with my mother, my sister, my daughter, all of us, of course, who come from, similar both genetic material as well as a context. And then we all have the similar, what we call the Rishika. I call that the wise seeker power. So I was always a, curious child. It was important for me to be smart. I was always reading a lot of things, but I was very focused on myself. Right, which is, I want to do good, I want to be good, I want to do this. It was a lot of I dialogue. I think for probably the first 25, 30 years, I thought social service was done by other people. And I was quite ambitious in the way of wanting to be successful as an individual and have notch up a lot of achievements and do that. So one is an organic part of growing up. And the other is, of course, your own life experiences do shape you. So, I think the birth of my daughter was one such experience where I found a shift in my priorities. I had to go through some struggles as a new parent and as a working mother, And that made me feel that it's not a fair system, right? I mean, there was nobody else to blame, but I said it's not a fair system. Women have to make these tough choices. And though in retrospect everything worked out well, now I found a deep empathy with other women who go through life making those particular choices. And I think the other turning point was, the other turning point was in when I lost my father very suddenly, about 10 years ago. And it was happened, extremely suddenly. He died of a heart attack. And my father, after he retired from the Indian Administrative Service, spent a lot of his time doing not-for-profit work. So he would tour extensively, and I saw that as a significant legacy that he was leaving behind, rather than what he did in a formal job. And I started thinking about what is my life going to be all about, and anything can happen at any time. Would I feel that I have lived a good life, and good in my eyes, a worthwhile life? And so those questions got triggered. And some of it happened organically, some of it was intentional. But I started having these questions about purpose and what is my life going to be all about, and can it be about something bigger than just me? And I felt in doing the work of coaching and leadership development, I was doing it to some extent. But in terms of a cause, something that I feel passionately about, I think my experiences as a mother and as a daughter and as a working woman have led me to this domain of, I call it, of course, gender equality, but really justice, equality, and inclusion as something that I care deeply about. And caring deeply about is of no use if you don't do anything about it. So, which is why now at this stage of my life, I see a convergence in my writing. So, writing of Powerful with My Daughter's Precious, the work I do with Glow, I think there is a cause which is very dear to me. And I want my life to be, of course, joyful and happy, but also meaningful to some extent. And I think that's the way it happened.
So I see a lot of self-awareness, in a lot of things which you've shared so far. And what role has spirituality played in your life?
Now that's interesting. So I would say I don't follow rigid practices of spirituality or religion. There are certain things that I like to do, which I will do on certain days. But for me, spirituality is really being alive to the spirit within yourself and feeling connected to the spirit outside, right? When you say that being in the presence of grace, being in touch with your spirit and working on that. So for me, that is spirituality. Do I have a practice? Yes. I mean, I do certain practices. Yoga is something which I enjoy because it connects all your domains of body, heart, mind, and spirit. I have a gratitude practice, which I, believe in. And I've seen it happen that the more things that you are grateful for, the more things you will get to be grateful about. And that is, a strong source of support to me. So in that sense, I think my own inherent Rishika nature also makes me a seeker. So reading widely, being open to all kinds of ideas, not being rigid or dogmatic, for me also is further on the path of spirituality. It's really about awakening to the highest possibility of yourself. And when you do that, you're totally connected. You're connected with yourself, you're connected with the spirit outside. It's a long journey. I'm nowhere there to attaining, nirvana or anything like that. But for me, it's a path, it's a practice, not a destination. And I think if you're just awakened to this wonderful spirit within yourself and see that connection in the world around you, whether it's in nature, whether it's in other people, for me, that is spirituality. I do believe in a goddess. I would say that in the power of the goddess and the divine feminine energy which is there. But over and above that, I don't have strong religious practices. But I do believe I am at least heading towards becoming somewhat of a spiritual person.
So what advice would this spiritual person give to the unstoppable women out there who are wanting to be like Nirupama, carving their own voice and walking the path. Because you see, I think it's all about following the light, and then other people can walk that path. And I think you are doing that. So what advice would you want to give to them?
Thank you for sharing that, Shailaja. And it's interesting that as a coach, one thing we are told is never advise people. You have to believe they're resourceful enough to find their own answers. So it's always, advice is a charged word for me. But having said that, I think this is a wish. Right? This is a wish for all the women, is to be fully awakened to their own gorgeous, amazing, powerful selves. Acknowledge that, own your power, claim your power, and live your power wholeheartedly. That's really what I have as a wish for all the young girls in the world, for all the women, and I would say all the people as well.
Thanks, Nirupama. Thanks for so many great insights about your life, your passion, what you've done with Glow. And I'm really thrilled to, know about your book, Powerful. I'm going to buy it. Read it this weekend.
Please do.
It's been on my to-do for a while now, but yeah, this weekend I'm going all after it.
Great, thank you. And this is what an author who has a book out does. Despite everything else, you want people to buy the book, of course, read the book, and get something for yourself from the book. Right. So, somebody was just telling me, there are a lot of people writing memoirs and biographies and, about their lives. And I was very, very touched to hear that. And they said, those books talk about how great that person is. Your book helps people understand how great they can be. So for me, that's really the wish with Powerful, that everybody reads it and feels and knows how great they can be. So please do. Yeah, be happy.
Thank you. Thank you, Nirupama. Thank you for coming on the show. It's been such a beautiful journey talking to you.
Thank you so much, Shailaja. It's been lovely talking to you.
And all
Thank
the
you
best.
So much.
All the best for future.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for tuning in. Join us again next week for more inspirational stories from unstoppable women.